you're always trying to learn from like better players and try to take little things of that they do and make it your own. But like you got to have identity as who you are as a player.
This is The Tournament Code.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We know where you are right now. You're at Vanderbilt. You're coaching over there. But before we get to that, your pro career, everything like that, let's kind of start at the beginning. How'd you get into the game of golf?
I grew up playing a ton of sports. My dad was a professional athlete, played in the NFL for 10 years. And so sports are always just so important to our family. And played golf kind of occasionally, kind of for fun, but was a little bit more serious about baseball and basketball. Got burnt out. Started playing golf when I was probably about 11, and then I started taking it serious about 14. So kind of got burnt out on baseball around that age, 13 or 14, and kind of went out to the golf course one day and just kind of fell in love with it. And then, kind of once I made up my mind I was going to specialize in golf at 14, it's really all I did, from 14 to 18. So that's how I got into it.
Did you start playing tournaments at that age, or is that something you picked up a little later?
Yeah, I started playing tournaments probably when I was 14. I mean, I'd play like the club championship or, something like a father-son kind of deal, when I was 11 to 13 or 14, but started playing, on the North Alabama Junior Golf Tour. I grew up in Florence, Alabama, which is, Northwest Alabama. So I played a lot of the North Alabama Junior Golf Tour stuff. And yeah, just kind of got started in that and kind of went from there to the SJGT, the Southeastern Junior Golf Tour, then went to the AJGA and then to college golf.
When did you realize that you were pretty good at golf? Was it something that came naturally, or did you just pick, or over time, did you figure it out?
Looking back at it, I think I thought I was probably I thought I was better than I actually was. I got good really quick once I started playing when I was 14. I was, I remember Jay Sewell had just gotten the Alabama job, and it was, my dad played football at Alabama. My mom went to Alabama. My brother went there. Sister went there. So it was just in my blood, just dying to go to Alabama. And remember he went and watched me play at the state high school championship, and he saw my grip, and he just almost immediately walked away. And that was probably my sophomore year, and I guess I started getting good kind of at the end of my junior year of high school. I started contending at a lot of, junior events like the Southern Junior, the Bubba Conley, and ended up winning a pretty big AJGA at the end of that summer. So I'd say I was kind of a late bloomer. I wasn't getting a ton of attention from schools, really until then. But, as soon as I kind of started playing well and Jay offered me, it was I kind of knew what I wanted to do. So
being that your dad was a professional athlete in the NFL, how was he able to help you just with the discipline and work ethic and competitive side of things?
I think number one, he wanted me to just enjoy what I did. He never pressured me to play football. He never pressured me to, do anything sports wise. I think he did a good job of introducing me to every sport and kind of letting me pick my own path. But he just wanted me to work hard. As long as I was having fun and I was working hard at it, that's all he really cared about.
Those are important things to have when it comes to golf. But another thing that's important is skill acquisition. And one of the things you mentioned is coach looks at your grip and says, hey, this looks a little funky. Did you work with a swing coach while you were in high school, or did you develop a relationship later? What was your path as far as swing coaching?
I would say kind of starting out, I was kind of self-taught. I mean, I had a couple lessons, from the local, our club pro, but that kind of only got me so far. And then I started working with a guy named Billy Eastep in the Huntsville area. Worked with him probably for about 6 or 9 months. He kind of fixed my grip, kind of got a few things straightened out. And I started working with Stephen Purrier, who I worked with I worked with him the remainder of probably, for my last 2 years of high school and then my first 2 or 3 years of college. And I think he was the guy that kind of got me good. He kind of took what I did well and didn't try to change that, but just kind of clean some things up. And he actually works with Lee Hodges right now. He's playing on the PGA Tour, so that's probably his most notable player out there right now. But he was kind of the guy that got me going, that got me going in the right direction.
And you got going in the right direction. You go to Alabama, and one of the things we talk about is, high school's good, playing good in AJGAs is good, but when you get to college, especially playing at Alabama, there's a lot of really good players. What was that transition like for you, going from high school to college and playing against that level?
when I got to Alabama, we weren't very good. The year before I got there, they were 98th in the country, and people don't realize that. They just think that Alabama wins national championships or whatever, And so with that being said, I was able to come in and play right away, and we made the national championship my freshman year at Caves Valley for the first time in 10 years. Finished the year ranked inside the top 25. I played almost every single event. My good was really good, but my bad was really bad too. And I remember like the SEC championship, I was either leading or tied for the league going to the final round of the SEC championship and shot 78. Just things like that. And then my sophomore year was a little bit better. I would say I tightened my game up a little bit and, had several top tens, but, I probably had 2 or 3 tournaments that kind of cost me from being an All-American. And then my junior year, everything started kind of clicking. And my bad tournaments turned into 25th instead of 50th. I was the first team All SEC selection that year. We had a top 5 team in the country, and we played in the final group of Stanford, Georgia, the final round of the national championship. That was kind of the progression, and then I had a decline. My senior year. My senior year, I really struggled, and I was fortunate to play with some guys. I played with Dustin Johnson and Luke List going into that. That summer going into my senior year, and I kind of, for some reason, I got in my head that I needed more speed and needed to change my golf swing to play professional golf. And I got so bogged down in just like perfect positions, swing videos, all the things that just don't matter when it comes to putting your peg in the ground and beating people. And we had the number 1 team in the country that year. And I was in and out of the lineup and eventually got benched for postseason. And that was probably one of the toughest times that I had in the game because, there wasn't a next season. Like, that was kind of it, and all I ever wanted to do was be a professional golfer. And, when I graduated, I wasn't in the right frame of mind to do that.
So, you talk about gaining more consistency throughout your career and, turning those 50ths into top 25s. What were some of those steps that you took to gain that consistency? And what were some of the things that just helped you mature in your golf game?
I think just an understanding of how to use my strengths when I play. I was never a great driver of the golf ball, but I was a really good iron player and a really good putter. If I just got the ball in play and didn't hit foul balls, I was going to play pretty well. So for me, it was hitting a lot more irons off tees. If I saw hazard on a hole on the right side and out of bounds on the left side, I probably wouldn't hit driver because there was no way I could make a committed golf swing. It was a lot of 3 woods, irons off tees, get the ball in play and kind of go from there. And then, just by your junior year, you've kind of played most of the courses once or twice, and you kind of have an understanding of how you need to play it. I think I would just say just understanding I didn't have to force driver. I wouldn't say I was a long player, but I was long enough, but I was probably, giving up some distance to, just to have the ball in play.
You mentioned that you got afflicted by feeling like you need to chase speed, and not just chase speed, but feeling like you needed to chase positions in your golf swing, and getting too technical or overly technical is something that can happen to everybody. When do you feel like you got rid of that, or did you ever get rid of that obsession?
I definitely got rid of it. I think when I was in college, it was kind of right when everybody was kind of getting into swing videos and everybody had to look like Tiger, and it's like every single instructor you would go to would put Tiger up there. It's just like, I'm not built like Tiger. Like, you're not built like Tiger. So why am I trying to swing like Tiger? I feel like coaching and teaching has gotten so much more individualized now. There's not just one model. And I think before when I went out there to practice, I was maybe running through a putting drill or 2. I was doing it. I was doing a chipping contest with somebody. I was working on my wedges. And then it kind of got to where I was spending all of my time chasing positions and chasing perfection in a golf swing, and just like, and then I'd get on the golf course and I was playing golf swing, and that's just, you just can't play under, you can't play under the gun that way. And I was doing it basically my entire senior year.
That's something I'm sympathetic to, because it's something that I've done. I stopped playing because I was injured, but also because I sucked, because I was doing that exact same thing. I was trying to get my swing here, try to do this. And it's only obviously years of hindsight, a little bit of development of the prefrontal cortex, that I realized, maybe I don't need to do that. And now a lot of what I do and trying to get better is like, I'm going to go out there, play, figure out how to get the ball around and be a little more athletic. When it came to wrapping up college, you said you wanted to go pro. You said you were really in the right frame of mind to go pro. What did you do after college?
So, like I said, after college, I wasn't in the right frame of mind or physically good enough to turn pro. So I actually stuck around and was a GA for the golf team. And I kind of look back at that time and I was working for two future national coaches of the year, Scott Limbaugh and Jay Sewell. And it was like, man, like I didn't even realize that. Like how lucky was I to be able to be around those two guys? And so I stuck around for an extra year, finished my degree, kind of hung out with the team, just kind of like, kind of got my feet wet as a coach. And then game still kind of wasn't, I'd kind of lost my desire during that time, like as a player. And I actually went and did a finance internship for about 6 months, hated every minute of it. And that's kind of where I got my desire back as a player during that time. And I was fortunate enough to move down to Sea Island, Georgia in March of 2010. And, just being around, I was around so many world-class players and instructors. It was just an unbelievable opportunity. I was able to go down there because of my swing instructor at the time, Todd Anderson. I was working with him, and it was a move that he thought I really needed to make if I wanted to really do this and take it serious. And so glad I did. I didn't have all the success I wanted to as a pro, but I learned so many things along the way.
You mentioned earlier, you played with Dustin Johnson, and that's kind of what spurred your thoughts of, I need to gain some speed if I want to play on the PGA Tour. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself in that position?
Just be you. Like, don't yeah, there's certain things that I needed to do better, but hitting it further wasn't one of them. And there's tons of guys that, swing at 113, 114 miles an hour that have success on the PGA Tour. And me trying to swing it like a guy who's 6'4" and just crazy athletic is just not the answer. There's certain things I need to clean up, but I feel like my growth was more just maturing as a player and even better understanding of who I am and how I need to play, and probably driving the ball a little bit better. And yeah, I mean, I think that was like a really you know that was a really tough time, but also a really good lesson that I learned that I actually thought helped me in professional golf.
You said Sea Island was a great place to be. We know a lot of the guys that are there, and we've talked with people before. Like our buddies are down in Jacksonville a lot right now because they're on the Corn Ferry, so they're all playing together over at Sawgrass. They're all practicing together. I was out there the other week. Really nice spot to get better. And when you're with a group of guys that are really good, it makes it a lot easier to get better to a degree because you're playing against good competition, and it at least makes you a little more comfortable. That's oftentimes it can be the case. It also can be the case that when you play against really good guys, you'll get your brains beat in so much that maybe you lose a little confidence. What was it like for you down in St. Simons, and what did you learn down there?
Man, when I first moved down there, it was a smaller group of guys. It was myself, it was Brian Harmon, Drew Weaver, who was, I'm sure you guys know who Drew Weaver is. He won the British Amateur, played at Virginia Tech. I think he's out of the game now, but kind of had a little stint playing on the Corn Ferry Tour and maybe a few tour events. Lucas Glover was down there, Chris Kirk. That was really about it. Now there's all kinds of people down there. There's probably like 25 pros down there now. So it was awesome just being around players like that. It made me better, but also like, you know, I think going through what I went through in college, it didn't freak me out as much. Like playing with guys that are that much better than you. It just pushed me to get better in my own way instead of me trying to do things like Brian or trying to do things like Chris Kirk or, kind of whoever. I actually live with Harris English and Hudson Swafford, and those are two guys that just hit it. I mean, they've hit it like tour players their entire life. And like, I didn't feel like I was trying to do things like them. Yeah, you're always trying to learn from like better players and try to take little things of that they do and make it your own. But like you got to have identity as who you are as a player.
What are some of the things that you learned from other players, and what's something that you think they learned from you?
Man, I don't know what they learned from me, but maybe my drive, my work ethic. I would say I don't know, just the guys that I spent kind of the most time around. I would say like Drew Weaver, like he was just like I feel like he was so efficient in the way he did things. He didn't waste time. I thought he did a good job of kind of always having a plan. When he was practicing, he did a great job of peaking towards tournaments. So like, he would kind of get back from, say he's out there for 2 or 3 weeks playing at a time, he would kind of get back, work with his coach, kind of do an analysis of kind of how the last 2 or 3 tournaments went, kind of work on certain things kind of early on. and then kind of get into more of like the competitive kind of playing mode closer to those next, 2 or 3 tournaments he's going to go out for. So I thought just having some structure like that as a pro, was really good. I thought that was like something I kind of caught on to quick, and I thought it really helped me, a lot as a player.
So you moved down to Sea Island, and you have some success as a pro. You played on the nationwide tour for a season, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point did you decide, I want to go full time into coaching?
I felt like when I was a pro down there, I kind of always did just good enough to kind of keep my head afloat. I played for 5 years. It's like I'd go get into nationwide tour event, and I'd put too much pressure on myself, probably play around the cut line, because I was just trying to make the cut, because I knew if I made a cut, then that would get me in. That would get me in, to the next reshuffle or whatever. I always kind of thought, like, I always told myself before I started playing, if there's ever a point where I feel like I wasn't getting better anymore, then that's when I would kind of hang it up. And I felt like I kind of had like a 2-year period where I just wasn't getting better anymore. And I think a lot of that was probably more stuff off the course, and more things that that I had control over that I wasn't taking care of. But I still kind of got to that point, and I never really knew that I wanted to coach. Honestly, I kind of got some advice from a couple of my good friends down there, Bobby Wyatt, Pat and Kazire, both said I think you'd be a really good coach. And I actually went into insurance right after I got through playing, and kind of the same thing I was doing with finance. I was sitting there, I did it for about 9 months, and I was like, man, like I've got to get back in the game. Like I just miss it so much. And I remember talking with JC Wall, I remember talking with Scott Limbaugh, just kind of like what, if they had any advice for me. And I remember sitting in the office one day and getting on NCAA Clearinghouse and looking, and just looking up jobs. And there was three job openings, and it was the Virginia assistant job. Oregon just won the national championship, their assistant job. And that's a long way. That's a long way for me to go. And then Marquette. And I emailed all three of them, and luckily Steve Bailey had me up for an interview and hired me on the spot. And it was a pretty incredible experience, kind of moving to Wisconsin where I didn't know a soul, and kind of getting my feet wet as a coach.
One of the rules I had when it came to going to law school was it had to be south of the Mason-Dixon line, because I like the weather down here. I like the people down here. Tell us a little bit about just the transition going up there, and then also learning about being a coach for the first time. Because I know we've had buddies who are coaches, and sometimes it can be a little bit weird going from being, a player, like just a guy, to all of a sudden now you got a little bit of authority, got to act a little bit more responsibly, got to follow a few more rules than you used to have to. Tell us a little bit about that whole transition.
Yeah, I remember going up there for my interview, and it was July or August, and in Milwaukee, which is like, there's no better place in the world in July or August. It's like, oh, this place is great, man. It's freaking 75 degrees. Like, it's perfect up here. And it was like 95 in Alabama, and I wouldn't think anything about it. And then as soon as October hit, I was like, wow, this is different, But I would say as a transition, yeah. I mean, it's like, I think the biggest thing I kind of learned, it kind of took me probably a couple years to learn this, but just like, I don't have all the answers. And I think I thought I did, kind of going into it, like, just because I have this great golf background, and I'm going up to, Wisconsin to coach golf, and they don't know anything up here or whatever. And like I feel like if you're helping a player, or when you're coaching a player, like, it needs to be their idea. Like, they're not going to truly own something unless it's their idea. So, like, I think I've had to learn how to, phrase things in a way where it's like, I might know the answer, but I need to let them come up with it. And yeah, I think that's been kind of the biggest transition in coaching, is just like, I don't have all the answers, and sometimes you need to let the player figure it out.
It's interesting you say that, because I got a little brother that's, he's in high school. He wants to play college golf, and I help him a lot whenever I can. And when I first started helping him, I kind of was like, try to tell him like what I know. And I'm like, I know everything. I'm going to tell you what to do. But like, after doing all of these podcast interviews, it's like, the more I learn, the less I think I know. And like, I've stopped just telling him what to do, and kind of just like saying fewer words and trying to just let him figure it out. Like, basically what you said. But you guys ended up winning the Big East championships that year. So how were you able to help the team succeed?
think from just like a preparation standpoint, I don't think they had much of an idea of kind of what it looks like for to prepare for a golf tournament, while we're at home versus, and then also like at the actual golf tournament. So I think I helped a lot with just like managing that, helping guys kind of figure out how to get better, because it is a little bit of a transition up there because you're doing a lot of stuff indoors. So that was kind of new to me. Like we would go into a dome basically and hit wedges on a football field. And, we'd have like 7 or 8 different targets kind of up on the football field. So that was, and then you do a lot of work on TrackMan and like doing different things like that I thought was really helpful. And then just, I don't know, just walking with guys and kind of helping them understand they don't have to be perfect, all the time, and just kind of playing to and from areas of strength and playing to certain spots. I think that was pretty beneficial for everybody.
You said guys didn't necessarily know how to prepare for tournaments. What is the way that you go about preparing for tournaments, at least back then?
Just kind of going back to what I was talking about with Drew Weaver, just like how he would kind of, like get back. He might not go play golf like the first day he gets back. He's going to analyze things. He's going to work with his coach. He's going to kind of go through those kind of things. He's going to go through all those things. And then he's going to kind of get back into the trusting, kind of tournament mode. And so I think there's a time and a place to, to play, to practice, to work with your teacher, to work on certain, aspects of your game. And I think just teaching guys how to manage that. And, kind of, I feel like that's how you kind of peak going into golf tournaments.
When you got that job, obviously you guys were, well, not obviously, but you guys were part of the coaching staff of the year. That's a pretty nice award to be part of your first year. What was your next move after that?
I went to Vanderbilt. So Scott Limahl was the assistant coach at Alabama when I was a player. He had an opening that summer, and luckily I was the only guy he interviewed, and it was nice just having that relationship with him. They were already really good, before I got here, and it was a perfect kind of next step for me, to go work under Coach Limahl.
So you got a few more years of experience under your belt now. Now you've been at Vanderbilt for about 5-6 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, I'm in my 6th season now.
That's pretty good. What have you learned now from being 6 seasons in at Vanderbilt that you didn't know when you were in your first season there at Marquette?
I think he's such a good leader and has just built a really special culture here. Yeah, I think I've just learned how to lead, and just I think I've learned how to coach guys differently. Everybody's a little bit different. I think some guys you can be really tough on, some guys you kind of can't be as tough on. Some guys want hands-on coaching, some guys don't. I think I've learned how to put everybody in, kind of under the same bucket. There's certain standards of the program that, that everybody's going to abide by. But as far as coaching and developing players, like that's different for everybody. You don't need to coach everybody the same way. So
since coaching at Vanderbilt, you've coached 3 SEC players of the year. You've coached John Augustine, Theo Humphrey, and Will Gordon. Just talk about, how they were different and how they were similar to coach.
They're all very different players. I only got to coach Theo for a year. I came in his senior year, and he was, one of the best players in the country that year. And then Gordo, man, I got to coach him for 2 years. And watching his progression, he really struggled his sophomore year, the year before I got there. Switched equipment, was changing his golf swing, kind of going through a little bit of the same thing that I was kind of going through when I was, at the end of my college career. And he was starting to kind of get it back a little bit his junior year. And it was kind of cool to see his progression. He went from not being an All-American to being an honorable mention All-American to being a first-team All-American his senior year and one of the best players in the country. And now he's out there playing on the PGA Tour and having a ton of success. And then John's one of the most talented players I've ever coached. He's got something mentally. It's a little bit different. And he was a 4-time All-American here, a first-team All-American his senior year. And I feel like John kind of got a little bit. He was on pace. His senior year. He was a first-team All-American. Obviously, got cut short because of COVID. He was about to go play in the Masters, and then COVID hits in March. I feel like he kind of got a little bit. I don't want to say posed or whatever, but it's just. That was a tough time for everybody, right? But for him, it was like, man, he was on pace. He's probably about to go play on the PGA Tour, and then that kind of happens, and then he comes back for a final semester, and then turns pro. But man, all those guys are so different. They all have different skill sets, but I think that they all just as far as what they learned from Coach Limbaugh, they all work super hard. They're all bought into the standards of the program.
You said that John had something different about him mentally, and that's something unique because there's some guys who we've talked with that people have said, they got something a little bit different about them, or we've noticed, hey, this guy is a little different. What do you think that mental differences that you've noticed? Like, how does it manifest itself? What do you think it comes from? All that kind of stuff.
He was kind of the guy that kind of just had a chip on his shoulder at all times, just the way he worked, just his drive. I don't think you can really teach that. I think that has to come internally. And I think that was what was so different about him. I think there's a lot of guys that kind of really want it, but like, are they willing to do what it takes to actually get there? And I think that's kind of what separates the elite athlete from, just a normal college golfer.
Yeah, it's easy to get distracted. Nashville's a fun city. I used to live there. I had teammates that I can remember, people that would go to school there, and they'd get there, and this probably isn't something that happens as much as Vanderbilt as it happens at other places, but I know other athletes get there like, hey, like, I'm here now, I'm at school, like, it's a pretty fun place to be. I'm going to go have some fun and then do some sports on the side. And you can do something like that, but it's very tough to be an elite athlete when you're really doing sports on the side and partying and hanging out full time for a living. And it sounds like that's something that you guys don't really struggle with. And one of the things that to keep you from struggling with that kind of stuff is recruiting. That's a big part of being a college coach. And I can remember we talked with Coach Webb recently over at UT, and something that he said he was really good at USF and going other places was recruiting. How has your approach to recruiting been? What's it been like, and how have you developed as a recruiter?
Well, recruiting's a bloodline in your program, and it's a tough part of the job, but I think that we've got a track record of finding the right fits here. It's not always the highest ranked player or the best golf swing or, kind of whatever. Like, I feel like we've done a good job of finding mature kids who have a desire to be great. And I don't feel like we recruit more than 4, 5, or 6 players in a class. I think recruiting from that bucket it makes things, I feel like you got to kind of do your homework kind of beforehand going into the summer, and then especially for us, like, being at an academic school, like, if a kid's looking at Alabama and LSU and Vanderbilt, well, we're probably not going to win that battle. Like, I feel like most of the kids are kind of looking at Vanderbilt or looking at North Carolina or Duke or SMU or Stanford, something like that. So we're kind of getting, these high kind of academic kids, and that want to compete for championships. So
that's one thing that's tough, I know, is balancing school and academics, especially at a place like Vanderbilt. How have you seen students manage that balance?
Man, it's tough. I feel like the kids that can manage their time have the most success here. And, it's tough balancing school, social life, golf, practice, working out, kind of whatever it is. It's a tough balance. I feel like the guys that are kind of mature about managing their time, being on a plan, like, those are the guys that have the most success.
We were talking about recruiting earlier, and for you guys to get Gordon Sargent was probably, one of the best gets of, your coaching career. He was one of the top junior players in the country. Now he's the #1 amateur in the world, won the NCAA national championship, individual title, and now he's getting ready to play in the Masters. So what was it like getting him, and what is it like coaching him?
I'll kind of back up to getting him. So I actually have known his dad, Seth, for probably 20 years now. Seth's a really good amateur player. Gordon's from Birmingham, which is, Coach Limbaugh from Childersburg, Alabama. I'm from Florence, Alabama. So we've kind of known who Gordon is for a long time. I played with Gordon when I was a pro. I was a member at Shoal Creek when I was a player, and was playing with the pro. And Seth, his dad, he's like, "Hey, if you don't mind, my son's gonna tag along." I was like, "Cool, awesome." He's like 12 or 13 years old, and I'll never forget. Like we stepped on the first tee, and like he had this look in his eye, like he's about to beat my ass. He was like he had this little killer instinct about him, and I was like, "Wow, it's different," And I watched him play that whole day, and I was just like, man, if that kid decides to take it serious, he's going to be really good. You just don't know from a 12 or 13-year-old if they are or not, And anyway, fast forward, 4 years later, I'm in my first year at Vanderbilt, and I go to the Bubba Conley in Memphis, and Gordon Sargent's on the tee sheet, and I go watch him. I was like, yep, he's still pretty good, and yeah, it was just I feel like it was a pretty natural fit for him. All the things he was kind of looking for, we kind of had. It was close to home. He was kind of looking at Stanford. He was looking at Virginia. He's looking at Georgia Tech. He's looking at us. And I think he kind of felt the most comfortable here. And, I think he had a lot of, we had recruited a couple juniors that he was pretty good friends with that we had come in the class or two before him. So that was helpful. And, he committed to us at the very end of his ninth grade year. And it's crazy. I remember just kind of going through things and just like, man, we still got 3 years before that boy gets here. But, recruiting's changed so much now. You can't offer a kid until their junior year. But yeah, he was kind of like that was the last kind of wave of kids to kind of commit that early.
That's incredible. To get a solid talent like that, solid's an understatement. To get a player like that's a boon for the program, as Cooper said, and then to build a team like you guys have is solid just to keep things going. Because we talk about like how good the perennials are, and you guys are one of them, but it can be difficult to keep that going. It's easy for teams to maybe not get apathetic, but maybe to metastasize, maybe get a little stuck. For you guys as coaches, what are the things that you're focusing on with your team to say, hey, like, let's keep not just keep the standards high. How do we push the standards higher? How do we keep getting individual success and team success?
Just to keep getting better. I don't feel like we have anybody in our program right now that's just like they're just like, I don't think they're okay with where they are. I think everybody has an understanding of kind of what they need to do to get better. And, I think we all have the same goal this year. And, we've won, I think our goal is to be the best team we can be, but, we all know what, kind of comes at the end of May. And I think that's probably where everybody's focus is kind of getting there. But yeah, I think the focus is just getting better, and how each individual player needs to do that.
So talking about getting better, what is a normal day of work, practice, and workouts, practice rounds, all of the above? What does that look like for Vanderbilt men's golf?
I would say a typical week, Monday is always an academic day, so it's going to be a day that we have off. Guys are going to have afternoon classes, kind of a day to kind of get ahead in school a little bit. And then Tuesday is always going to start with a 6 a.m. workout. We kind of go through like a little bit of start out with like some cardio, getting your body warmed up, kind of go into a little bit of a body activation, then a dynamic lift, and always kind of end with, some cardio and some stretching. And then guys are going to be in class from 8 to, kind of 8 to 12, probably, or 8 to 11. And then we're going to, go out to the golf course in the afternoon and, kind of where we are in the season, whether it's going to be an on your own practice, or we're going to do a team practice, or we're going to do a competition practice, or a black and gold, kind of competition, or we're qualifying, kind of wherever we are. So, and then Wednesday, Wednesday guys are going to have class, and then we're typically going to play, that afternoon. Thursday's going to look just like Tuesday, probably going to practice in the afternoon. Friday and Saturday we typically play as well. So that's what. And then as far as the practice round goes, I feel like we're pretty detailed in our practice rounds. From figuring out sight lines off the tee, wind directions, figuring out how each individual player needs to use their skill set to play, the golf course. Like I said before, I think it's different for everybody. And we got 7 guys right now that can. We have 7 guys right now that could be all Americans, this year, and they're all different, play golf courses totally differently. Some guys need to bang drivers as much as possible. Some guys need to play back and just get the ball and play. So, and then just kind of figuring out where, what pins you can get at, what pins you need to play away from. But I feel like a lot of our work is kind of done in the practice realm.
Having a good plan coming to tournaments important. And part of a good plan isn't just a practice round. It's, getting the right sleep, all that kind of stuff. What do you work on with your players to make sure that they're doing the right things going to the tournament, and also still getting their school done and still being prepared for the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Coach and I. We have really good leadership on our team. Matthew Riedel, Gordon Sargent, Reed Davenport, Cole Sherwood. Those guys are just really good leaders, and it's not just us holding players accountable. It's I think that's what's so special about our culture is that it's player led too. And as far as practicing and things like that, I feel like it's very individualized. Like right now, I'm working a lot with Wells Williams. He's been playing. He's a freshman, didn't play for us in the fall. He's played for us every single event this spring, and I've walked him every single shot. He's a phenomenal ball striker. I mean, one of the best I've seen. He's got really good ball control, but his putting and chipping is, just it's got a lot of room to grow. I'll just say, and so I'm kind of setting up a lot of different, kind of competitive games for him, a lot of speed putting games, and he likes it. I mean, he likes me being around and kind of helping him run through that kind of stuff. Gordon Sargent, I spent a lot of time with him, last year, kind of working on like wedge combines and doing a lot of TrackMan games with him. So it's kind of, I feel like I spend a lot more time with the younger guys, kind of teaching them kind of how to work. And then hopefully, by their sophomore, junior, senior year, they kind of figure out how to do it on their own. And then, when we have kind of like a structured team practice, I mean, that's kind of something everybody's going to do. And we do a lot of one-on-one kind of, a lot of one-on-one kind of match play stuff. Like we'll set up 6 chips, 6 wedge shots, and 6 putts. And Cooper, you and I are going to go one-on-one against each other. And if you make the putt, you're one up. If I hit the chip inside of you, then we're all square. So we'll kind of go through that. I think anything that's situational and gets guys uncomfortable has been really beneficial for us.
When it comes to your program, we've talked with you off air that, we're big UK basketball fans. And one of the things about UK basketball is you're not just preparing players to play good UK basketball, which is what you want. You also want them to be able to be good pros, good people, etc. As a coach at Vanderbilt, you guys have a lot of guys that have come through, gone on to play, and are probably still, even more so now, going to have guys go on and play at the next level. What do you do as far as a coach to help them be ready for that next step, being out on their own?
I just think letting them have ownership of their time management, not like I feel like the more mature the team is, the more rope we're going to give them. And, when you're a pro, you don't have anybody booking your flights. You don't have anybody booking your hotel rooms. You don't have anybody, telling you where you're going to go eat or when you're going to go practice. So, like I said, it all kind of depends on the maturity of the team. But I feel like right now we've got a very, very seasoned, mature team. And like guys don't really need to be told kind of what to do as far as practice goes. So try to give them as much kind of time, free time and ownership of their games as they need, kind of individual. And then just kind of like we did a Zoom with Will Gordon a couple weeks ago and just like let the guys ask him questions and like anything from like, what a normal tournament week looks like or what he's doing when he's home or how he's, preparing physically, before a tournament round. Just little things like that I feel like has really been beneficial to our guys to talk to, kind of other tour players.
We've talked a lot about preparation and getting ready for tournaments, but kind of want to switch gears here and talk about reflection. And the reflection process after tournaments is something that I believe is very important. So what does that reflection process look for you guys? And like, take, for example, you guys just won the Cabo Intercollegiate about a week ago. So how did you guys reflect on that win and, going forward to prepare for the next event?
It's a little bit different for us for that tournament just because we're on spring break right now and everybody kind of went their separate ways. I actually had to go down to Alabama to pick up my wife and daughter. So on Thursday, so I hadn't really talked to anybody since, we kind of, since we got back. So we're actually going to reconvene on Wednesday afternoon and kind of go through some things. But Coach and I will do individual meetings with each player and all the guys will do stats throughout, for all 3 tournament rounds. And we'll kind of go back and kind of just talk about things and we can kind of look back, at really any shot and like, say it was your second shot on number 13 and, you lost a shot and a half there, strokes gained. Well, we can kind of look back and be like, okay, what was the process like? Was it a mental mistake? What was it an uncommitted target? Was it an uncommitted swing? What was it? What caused that shot right there? So I feel like it's kind of cool to kind of go back and look at those things. And then, we're obviously looking at strokes gained putting, looking at strokes gained off the tee, procs from, 75 to 175, things like that. So, I think in general, I thought our speed putting was not very good last week. I think everybody lost. I think I think everybody had at least 3 putts, which is not good enough for us. And I think that's going to be an area of focus, kind of going into the linger longer next week.
A lot of people say when it comes to keeping stats, like the college players included, like sometimes it can be hard to have the discipline to keep stats, et cetera. And sometimes people take a look at stats and say, hey, like that's too much information for you. Obviously, it's not too much for you. You guys know how to parse through it. How do you encourage your players to not just keep stats, but work with the stats as a team and try to actually pull information from it that reflects on the tournament?
I mean, it's definitely like pulling teeth trying to get our guys to do stats, and look, I don't blame them. I mean, doing stats is not that much fun, but I think it's a lot more fun to do stats when you play well, right? I mean, like when you play good, you can't wait to put in that 65 and see what your stats were, But I feel like our guys are all kind of bought in. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's I'm like, hey buddy, get your stats done, come on, like So I feel like they're all kind of bought in. Some guys are looking at it more than others, but I feel like if it helps everybody one shot, then it's worth it, and helps guys manage their practice time kind of post-tournament, then it's certainly worth it to me. So, but I feel like more importantly, it kind of teaches the player who they are. And I'll use Cole Sherwood for an example. He was a junior first this year, and kind of going into once John Augustine turned pro during the halfway point of Cole's freshman year, that kind of opened up a spot, and Cole went and took that spot and has never left the lineup since. But he was kind of like hitting a lot of 3 irons off tees and 3 woods and all this stuff. And like, dude, he's literally one of the best drivers of the golf ball I've ever coached. And I'm just like, Cole, like if you're playing back from where everybody else is, you're not getting an advantage. Like you hit your driver as far and straight as anybody I know. So if there's an opportunity to bang driver, you need to do it. I mean, he ended up being a first team All-American his sophomore year. I mean, he's played unbelievable since then. And I mean, he's just his formula is hitting a lot of drivers. And, when he's got to kind of play back to where everybody else is, I mean, he's just not going to, he's probably going to struggle, So if you get that boy on a golf course where you can hit a lot of drivers, he's going to be tough to beat.
That is awesome. We only have a few more questions for you. We talked a little bit about post-round wrap-up and something that can happen after a round. Winning is fun. It's fun for when everyone wins. Everyone likes winning, but sometimes things don't go that way. And when guys shoot 75 or something like that, it's easy for guys to, 1, feel like they let down the team, 2, feel like they let down themselves, and then kind of live in the light of that. And sometimes it can drag down the mood, drag down the team, and people can get inside their own head. What's the bus ride or fan ride or anything like that, like after a tournament when guys don't play as well? And how do you try to keep everybody focused and wanting to get better without dragging things down?
There's certain guys, and I was certainly one of those players too, but I got real quiet after I played bad, And I mean, I think that's always going to kind of be the case as long as you're playing college golf. You're going to have some guys that kind of handle it well, and it doesn't really phase them. But some guys when they play bad, most players when they play bad, they're going to be pretty quiet. But I certainly don't think that it gets to a point where it's like affecting anybody else, But I mean, I think sometimes you just gotta. I think sometimes when you kind of maybe need to get into a player, Coach Limbaugh or I will do that, and kind of get their tell them to get their body language right or their self talk, whatever it is that they're kind of slacking on.
That's perfect. I think that really covers what we're looking at, just as far as keeping them on track. It sounds like you guys do a great job at that. And then beyond that, are there any sort of mental coaches you guys have worked with at Vanderbilt or had the guys work with?
It's all individualized. Some guys work with mental coaches, some guys don't. I would say it's maybe we probably have 3 or 4 guys that work with a mental coach. Yes and no. I mean, I think it's different for everybody.
Perfect. Well, we know you got family waiting for you. You got dinner waiting for you. I might have dinner waiting for me at home, hopefully. So we're all in the same boat. So we'll get to our last question. Last question we ask every guest is the same. If you could go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself just one thing, what would that one thing be? And in the case for you because you're a coach. Also, if you could tell a junior golfer one thing, what would that one thing be?
I would probably just say just like that, like just ensure myself that I'm good enough and that, you know, my physical abilities are good enough. Like, yeah, sure, there's certain things I got to get better, but like, I don't need to change who I am, you know, I don't need to change who I am as a player, you know, and I don't need to lose my identity as a player. And I feel like I did do that in college. I kind of like at the end of my college career, I lost my identity as a player. And then I probably say the same thing to a junior golfer. It's just like, you know, I mean, it's like stay true to who you are and don't try to be anybody else.
Perfect. Well, if people are looking for you on social media, want to reach out to you, where can they, following recruiting rules or anything like that? If people are interested in learning more about you, where can they find you on social media?
I think my tag is the same on Twitter and Instagram, but I think it's just underscore G Todd.
Perfect. Be sure to give Gator a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and leave us a rating. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're trying to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Tournament Code and on Instagram at The Tournament Code. As always, we appreciate you joining us. We look forward to diving in deeper to what it takes to play elite tournament golf.